Doctor Who's very first serial aired in 4 25-minute episodes from November 23rd to 14th of December 1963. It told the story of two curious school teachers who discovered that their student, Susan Foreman, and her grandfather, the titular Doctor, are actually time travelers from another world. Aside from being a landmark piece of television history, An Unearthly Child should be commended for a great many things, beginning with its bold opening titles and theme tune. I may in the future do some videos on the creation of both of these, so we will move swiftly on to what we see directly after: a policeman in the fog. There is something called the Primordial Image, which to most people in film suggests the most important image seen either at the beginning or end of the film, a frame or frames that immediately set the scene or tone, perhaps suggesting something about character. But actually, the idea originally stems from the Archetypes of Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist, who, according to Wikipedia, defined them as universal, archaic symbols and images that derive from the collective unconscious. They are the psychic counterpart of instinct, described as a kind of innate, unspecific knowledge derived from the sum total of human history, which prefigures and directs conscious behavior. All this to say that there's something about the human mind and how it has evolved that means we react to certain images in a similar way. Think about your favourite films and television shows for a minute. What is the first thing you see? What are the makers wanting to place in your mind? Indeed, what is the last thing you see? What do they want you to remember once the credits roll? In An Unearthly Child, we have a policeman shining his torch through the fog. He hovers at the entrance of Foreman's junkyard and passes it by. In any other show, he might uncover a mystery, a body, a lost child, or indeed, a police box. Instead, it is us, the audience, who are treated to this revelation. After a long, perhaps drawn-out dolly forward, we pass through the gates and into the junkyard to find said police box humming away in the darkness, waiting to be found. This opening sequence, where not a word of dialogue is uttered, acts to tantalize an expectant audience who know right from the off that all is not as it may seem. An ordinary police box hiding extraordinary secrets, much like the wardrobe into Narnia. This opening scene is a real statement of intent, doing what Doctor Who will go on to be known for, taking the seemingly ordinary and turning it into something quite different. Unlike other shows, our spaceship does not look like one. To the post-war British public, it looks like an everyday object found at the end of the street. And the Doctor himself, who we soon discover, is not a grouchy old man, but a grouchy, young Time Lord. We're first introduced to Ian Chesterton and Barbara Wright in Coal Hill School, London, who are puzzled over the remarkable abilities of their student, Susan Foreman.
Susan Foreman? She your problem too?
Yes.
And you don't know what to make of her?
No.
She lets her knowledge out a bit at a time so as not to embarrass me. That's what I feel about her.
Ian, a science teacher, remarks that Susan is bored by what he considers fascinating experiments. Barbara, a history teacher, is confused as to how a modern girl in 1963 can be learned in the matters of history way beyond her years, yet not know how many shillings go into a pound.
That's not right.
In one of maybe too many flashbacks, Susan remarks that England has not moved to the decimal system yet, highlighting a profound amount of foreknowledge.
Suppose she couldn't be a foreigner. Doesn't make sense.
The two teachers grow concerned and decide to visit Susan at her home, which, as it turns out, shares the address of the junkyard seen at the start of the episode. It is here where Barbara declares,
I feel frightened, as if we were about to interfere in something that is best left alone.
In the junkyard, we are introduced to the Doctor, played by the incomparable William Hartnell, a tough and wiry old man, but with a twinkle, whose frosty reception to the two interfering teachers only generates more intrigue. I have seen this episode many times, and still, Hartnell's performance carries with it an incredible amount of weight. In fact, we don't really get to see such a commanding side of this Doctor again until Part 4, The Firemaker.
Why were you spying on her? Who are you? Young man, is it reasonable to suppose that anybody would be inside a cupboard like that.
Hartnell's interpretation may seem strange to fans exclusive to the new series, or even the casual viewer, who I would bet has images of Tennant and Smith flashing through their minds. Two great doctors in their own right, but very different from the original we see here. There is a reason for that, however, and it's something I will explore at length over the coming videos.
Here, and frankly, I don't understand your attitude.
So yours leaves a lot to be desired.
Ian and Barbara become increasingly worried that Susan is in trouble, perhaps even locked up by her grandfather.
It was Susan's voice.
Of course it was. Susan! Susan! Are you in there? It's Mr. Chesterton and Miss Wright, Susan.
Don't you think you're being rather high-handed, young man? You thought you saw a young girl into the yard. You imagine you heard her voice. You believe she might be in there. It's not very substantial, is it?
But why won't you help us?
I'm not hindering you. If you both want to make fools of yourselves, I suggest you do what you said you'd do. Go and find a policeman.
Come on, Barbara.
What are you doing out there?
She is in there!
Close the door, please. Barbara, what do you like?
Once they cross over the threshold and through the doors and into Narnia, we see for the very first time that the police box is no such thing at all, but a time machine that's bigger on the inside.
I made up the name TARDIS from the initials, time and relative dimension in space. I thought you'd both understand when you saw the different dimensions inside from those outside.
A thing that looks like a police box standing in a junkyard. It can move anywhere in time and space.
Yes.
Quite so.
Finally, the truth is revealed, but at a cost. The Doctor, fearing that Ian and Barbara will leave and start blabbing to all their friends, starts the machine. The Doctor not so much whisks them away, but kidnaps them, much to the chagrin of his shrieking granddaughter. The TARDIS takes flight, immediately experiences some turbulence, and for some reason knocks all its guests unconscious. This could be explained by the fact that the Doctor does not actually know how to fly it properly, a fact we learn in episode 4. So we can assume he's done something wrong. The conclusion to the episode is strange, with the faces of each actor appearing as the time vortex is superimposed on top of them. In my opinion, this doesn't quite work and goes on a bit too long to be convincing. However, I am speaking from the position of someone who knows what's going on. To a viewer in 1963, the unsettling visuals and sound effects of the TARDIS in flight must have been quite the surprise. The episode ends with the TARDIS standing, not in the junkyard, but moved in time and space, landing finally in the Stone Age, where a foreboding shadow is cast of a mysterious onlooker, a Paleolithic man who observes the TARDIS with both confusion and intent. The theme tune sirens the end of the episode, and we wait eagerly for more. I want to remind you of the aforementioned Jungian archetypes. With these final images, the Paleolithic man looming over the wasteland, and the TARDIS, a simple 20th century object transposed into the past, Doctor Who is able to cement itself in our brains. The suspension of disbelief has enabled us to accept the impossible, and we wonder what on earth could happen next. For the most part, we are following in the footsteps of Ian and Barbara, who it must be said are instantly likeable, a testament to the performances of both William Russell and Jacqueline Hill. They are the ones who ask the questions we need answers to, and they, like us, have been transported. Of all the characters featured in this episode, it is Susan that suffers the most. Although seemingly interesting at the beginning, she is quickly sidelined at the arrival of the Doctor. One has to wonder why she's needed to be in the story in the first place. Don't get me wrong, I admire the character and actress Carol Ann Ford a great deal, and I admit that having a young female aboard the TARDIS would have attracted a greater proportion of children. But it's almost as if Anthony Colburn, who otherwise did a fantastic job writing the episode, did not quite know how to handle her. Ian and Barbara are a perfect team. The logical, scientific-minded Ian and the curious historian Barbara, both of which will benefit from travelling in space and time. Susan, then, it would seem, was surely invented just to get them aboard. Doctor Who's very first MacGuffin. Overall, I give part 1 to the Unearthly Child serial a 9 out of 10. It's not perfect, but it's an incredible introduction to an incredible show, and the fact that it has lasted this long surely means it's worthy of a lot of love. That's it for this episode, but stay tuned as I dive deeper into my analysis of this story. And if you've liked what you've seen here, please consider liking and subscribing to the video, ring the bell and show your support. If not, that's okay too. Wherever you are, thanks for watching.